Rick Ebling was born on March 29, 1949 in Lebanon, PA to George and June Ebling. George worked as a carpenter and June was a seamstress. Rick Ebling was their only child. Ebling attended Eastern Lebanon County School District, which is where he met his future wife, Rochelle. Earlier in 1968, Ebling decided to enlist in the Air Force.
For the experience.
Ebling went to basic training in Amarillo, Texas, then married Rochelle in 1969 before moving to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida together. He got orders to go to Thailand for a year, and after his year was up, Ebling moved to Carswell Air Force Base with his wife before returning to Pennsylvania. Rick Ebling attended basic training in Amarillo, Texas, and was a part of the last group to go through basic training there. His training was in aircraft mechanics, and he also received specialized training in 43171A aircraft and engine specialist. Ebling enjoyed the training, but admitted it was tricky to remember all the things he had to do. After his completion of basic training, Ebling got his first assignment at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, starting out as an airman. According to Ebling, the Air Force bases he stayed at were kept
Strict and clean. It was just like going to work. Get up in the morning, go to work, and go to bed in the evening, just like working.
As an aircraft mechanic, Rick Ebling was in a combat support role, and he described what he mainly did as
Simple maintenance things, because aircraft maintenance was specialized. If you had an engine problem, you called an engine mechanic. If you had radio problems, you called a radio mechanic, so forth and so on.
the first planes he worked on were old airplanes from the late 1940s that used to be Navy airplanes. Ebling was able to tell this because
The reason they were Navy airplanes is because they were on aircraft carriers, and if you watch old war movies, you could see these planes sitting on an aircraft carrier with their wings folded up. That's what tips them off that they were Navy before they became Air Force planes.
also often worked on C-123 planes, which was a cargo plane that carried anything from people to tanks. His most common repair on them was making sure there wasn't any water that accidentally got into the fuel tanks. His other main responsibilities included inspecting the aircraft, writing up what was wrong with it, and handing it over to the specialist that was needed for that specific problem. He reported one of the most unusual experiences he had was when a plane came back with bullet holes in the tail. Rick Ebling served in Nakhon Phanom, or NKP, for a year as part of his service. While he was there, he stayed in barracks that they called hooches. There was usually somewhere between 10 and 20 people in one hooch, and they also had ladies called mamasan to take care of them. A mamasan was like a maid. She made beds, washed and ironed clothes, among other things. He also recalled one of the unique experiences he had there was
Well, Christmas time they get a tremendous amount of mail in and out of the post office. So they went around and asked people if they would like to volunteer to help in the post office over Christmas. And I said, sure, that's something different. I like to do that. And then I worked in the mail room for maybe a month or so.
While in Thailand, Ebling also went on a few 3-day passes. On one 3-day pass, Ebling recalls going on a jeep tour into the jungles. On another 3-day pass, Ebling went to Bangkok, and while he was there, he saw an American movie with Thai subtitles and toured around the city. He remembers,
And the traffic was horrendous, and all you heard was cars whizzing by and horns blowing, and it was like rush hour in New York City.
Rick Ebling returned from his service in Thailand in October of 1971. His next location was at Carswell Air Force Base in Texas, which is where he stayed until the end of his service. His service ended in October of 1972, and after that he returned to his home in Myerstown, PA. He got a job as a carpenter, and
I followed in my dad's footsteps.
he also joined a veterans organization called American Legion Post in Richland, PA, and to this day keeps in contact with a friend from the military. Some lessons he learned from being in the military are
Just to keep on working hard, that's it. I guess it probably gave me a good work ethic.
one thing he wishes more people knew about veterans is that
That they're all great people.
overall, Ebling believes serving in the military was a great experience for him and taught him important lessons that served him well later in life. Thank you, Mr. Ebling, for your military service.